What's going on, people? I am Swaver, and this is the Opinionatedfactsmgr Group podcast. I'm joined by my amazing team, Journey to be Great, Coco Love, and Illuminated Lenses. And we have a very special episode for you guys today. We're going to be talking about marriage, but marriage in 3 stages. When you first get married, stage 1. Stage 2, we'll be talking about the first 2 to 5 years. And then stage 3, we're talking about between year 5 and year 10. Now, of course, it goes much deeper than that, but that's what we're going to cover today. So today we have a special guest. This is going to be the person that's leading us through these things. She's been married before, and she's going to be helping us with these 3 areas that we're going to be talking about today. So we want to welcome you to the podcast. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling well, and I hope the same to you and your team. And I want you to know I love the liveliness that you all bring to the format. But so far, it's a great day.
Cool.
We appreciate that.
Okay. So we will get right into it then. So starting out, what actually made you want to get married, and at what age did you get married?
Well, for me, I just thought it was a great honor, and I thought that was the thing to do. I was dating a guy for 2 years, and, a lot of times we put the timeline on how long you're supposed to date me. And since we had gotten into some premarital sexual content, the next thing was expect was marriage. And I was 20 when I got married. I was 2 days 20. So, yes, I got in there early.
Do you feel like that's a good measuring stick to use time as a measuring stick of when to get married?
I don't think the time limit should be there, but also I don't want a good man to pass me by because I'm with the current guy and he's probably slow in this relationship. And because I'm trying to be faithful, getting to know him, somebody good could have just passed me by because I'm not putting a time limit on it. So I think it can go both ways. You don't want to miss out on somebody good as well. And with the person that I married young, I did not try to get to know anyone else. So that's why I put that time limit on him.
Oh, man, that's a really good point. I hear about that a lot. Well, hey, we ain't getting no younger, and, the time is just floating by, and we can go ahead and do this. Okay, so I can understand that. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, I was just about to say, I've heard quite often that prior to getting married, a woman should be a wife. And I can say I can agree with that. So at the age of 20, did you feel like you were a wife already or ready to be a wife?
Well, for me, I had great examples, my grandmother and my mother. So, yes, I had those qualities. I knew what it was to keep home. They did not believe in a nasty home, so I knew to clean up. I knew how to cook. I saw both of them raise children, so I still knew those kind of skills as well. So I was preparing myself. I was probably young learning finances, but I knew from their financial struggles, I didn't want to be broke. So I knew those parties go into this marriage, handling our financial affairs. And I think only one time my dad had to help us, but outside of that, we always did well when it came down managing our finances in our marriage.
Okay.
So before you had got married, what were some characteristics that you were looking for in a man just to make you feel like, okay, this is the guy that I could see myself being with or marrying?
I did want a person who had a job and not who had jobs, but I wanted to make sure it was a man who been on the job for some years. And this person, he was in the military and he had a job. And when he was dating me, to be truthful, my parents never took care of me anymore. So he did show in the while we was dating. He did that for me. He bought my shoes. He bought my clothes. He paid for me to graduate from high school. He bought the cap and gown. So that was something I wanted somebody to be a provider. My dad, he provided, but he was not in the house per se, but he provided for us. And that was the number one thing. And I wanted somebody who was going to love me, who could talk to me. We did talk. We enjoyed things together. We both played ball. So we just had that connection. It's just our enjoyment was the same thing. And at that time, our mindset was the same. Our mindset changed, but that'll be the next part.
Okay. So you said your mindset changed. So what do you think caused the change? Like, take us a little bit more into the change. So obviously, from what you're saying, he seemed to be a pretty good guy when you first met him.
Yes, he was.
Okay, and so your parents probably approved of him, especially if he was doing the things that you said he was doing. And so you probably was like, yeah, this might be pretty good. You know, we're indulging in some activities that maybe married people should be doing. He's showing me some signs of maybe he's able to take care of me. So you move on to the next stage. So when did you start seeing some things change?
Eventually, I went to college and I gained other knowledge about things. And it just was for me, the world was different now. So for me, it was not always about playing softball. I wanted to go out there and succeed on my job. At first, he was okay with me working as a cash register. Eventually, I became a housekeeper cleaning bedrooms at hotels. He was okay with that. But once I went to college, I fell in love with accounting. So now I wanted to be an accountant. He was okay, but I wanted greater. I learned that the household can talk about 100 and 1,000, millions, and where we was comfortable always talking about tens and 20s. And then, too, I started going to events, being around successful people, business owners, and the world just looked different. So I just think he probably got in a place of comfort. So I just think that it started messing up our communication. The communication just was not the same anymore.
I get that. So basically, you were reaching for more in life, and he seemed to be comfortable with where he was at.
Right.
Did you ever feel like you could have worked that out with him? Did it dawn on you that he may not be the person for you?
Well, yes, I thought we would have made it, but because our interests changed, I was not going to the ball games anymore. So since I was not at the ball game, it was another young lady out there at the ball game who took his interest, who was there to hear his concern. I was not there anymore. I was in the classrooms. I was at these events with politicians and business owners. So that's completely made that it just could not work. I was wanted it to work, but someone else, as they say, took my place. And I just thought at that point, yeah, it's time to kind of move on.
So I was going to ask, when your mindset started to shift, did you give him some of this new information that you were getting in hopes that he would shift with you as well?
Well, yes, I did, because I was excited about this information. Of course, I ran home and said, oh, in the classroom, we talked about this. You know, it was talking about investing in different things and the turnover of your money. And if we have grandchildren, put this amount of money in the bank, and it's going to turn over that when your child turns about 20, this child's a millionaire. So, yes, I was sharing all that information, and I was inviting them to all the events. And because I keeping the books for a lot of these politicians and professional people, I had many perks. So a lot of the perks took care of him. He got the nice clothes, the sweatsuits and the shoes, and he got all that with it. But he just never wanted to go and participate. So I don't think he understood that if we were going for this, let's go for it together. You can enjoy the softball, but it's going to be better for our children. It's going to be better for our grandchildren.
Do you feel like he was selfish, or do you feel like he just didn't understand?
Well, I think what I said earlier, he had another interest. The fact that I could not get him on board, because if he was listening at first, and a lot of time our meeting place, we went to the different games. Yes, he went to the games, but as it came down to the politician, maybe that comfort was not there. I'm not going to say my communication was the best, but eventually his interest was still at the ball game because, as I said, he had someone else.
So was he older than you?
Just 2.5
Okay.
years.
So about how long had you all been married when you discovered the fact that you guys were basically growing apart?
Well, I'll say for me, and I just never said it. So if my children should hear this, they're going to be like, oh, I cannot believe Mama said that.
Oh.
I would say for me, because I went to college probably about 5 years into the marriage. So eventually, I think my mindset was changing probably about 7 years into the marriage. I was just thinking differently, but it was okay because, too, we had the children. But I think probably about 15 years into the marriage, I think we were just counting the years. We were just happy to say we were still married. And people say, who's been married the longest? We would say, hey, we beat them. But that was just it. We were just counting the numbers. I think about 15 years, we was kind of dry with each other.
This is really good. I'm so happy that you're sharing this because this is very important. And if you're listening, whether you're a woman or a man, this is very powerful because this is some real life examples of what's going on. And then you get to see how you may start out one way and then you just go through certain changes as you're in the relationship. And then it leads you to want to go in a different path. And that's just so interesting to me. So I had a question as far as like, you won't know this really because you're not him. And when I say him, I'm talking about your husband. But I do want to ask you this. While you were making your transition, what do you think was happening in his head? Like, we know he was still going to the games, but I'm sure he still knew he was married. I'm sure he knew, hey, I got kids. And I'm sure he knew what you were trying to do because I'm sure you brought it up to him several times. But I'm just asking, if you just had to gauge, what do you think he was? I know he had someone else, but do you think he was really thinking about it in terms of, hey, I could actually lose my family by doing this? Do you think that crossed his mind?
I don't think he was looking at the family part. I think when that conversation came face to face, now that I knew of this other person, he had fallen in love, and that was his response. He had fallen in love, so he just went deep into that comfort, and I don't think he really thought about the loss until later, after the divorce. After all the whatever the distance with the children. I don't think it hit him yet because he just gave his all into his comfort and softball. Those were people he grew up with, the guys, the girls, and everything, and that was his comfort. But again, by the time I said something, maybe I said something too late. Maybe because I felt it, but I was always saying that I was not looking at anyone. So I'm sure he's faithful, like I'm faithful. Although it was dry, I felt like maybe that dry period would, eventually get wet again. But his mindset, I guess, just was not mine, that I knew still to be faithful to my husband. I had people offering to be with me. I told my children, hey, if I wanted to cheat, I had a millionaire ex-pro football player who was trying to talk to me, but I didn't go that way because I knew I was a wife and I was a mother. So, but he had fallen in love.
That's really crazy. But one question that I have is it's kind of sounding like y'all weren't on the same level. And what I mean by this is that when you all first started dating or first started marriage, I know you said he was in the military, so he had some change, had some money and everything like that. But it seems like since he had early on success with money, he was kind of content with being at that level. And even though at that point, financially you weren't at that level, you wanted to work your way up. And it seems like once you did and you kind of surpassed him in a way, it kind of seemed like he didn't want to grow with you. So I guess my question is, do you think that it's important to be with somebody who on your level or somebody who constantly wants to grow?
Okay. I think how sometimes people might say don't get married early. I'm not gonna say the early part is what the issue, but it's important to know people's foundation. I knew his parents and their foundation. If I had looked at that, brought that into the picture, I could have better said, okay, yeah, he's doing good military. He got a job. He's taking care of me. But his family, they was kind of at a certain place financially, and maybe that's all his mindset could even take. But, my parents, not that they achieved much, but my mom, she was always learning. She was always talking about success. She was pushing us for success. They encouraged us to go to college. So I just could have just looked at the foundation part of a man. So I would say to anybody, go deeper than those conversations. Look at the parents. Look at how they're talking about success. Look at what they're talking about. Do they value marriage? Do they value finance? Do they value whatever? Go beyond and really find the root of that man, the root of that woman. And I think that's what it is. Those roots eventually were deep, and I couldn't change those roots. But nobody asked how many years we made it now. Although we was counting numbers, we made it 28 years. So can you imagine how that was, 15 to 28 counting years?
28?
Yes.
Wow. That's going to be interesting to talk about on the next episode, just basically going through the motion for that long.
Well, you guys, I think we're going to kind of stop it right here. There will be a part 2 of this episode, and I hope you guys are getting something from this as we come to a close on part 1. I want to thank my team, and more importantly, I just want to thank our guests. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared with us, because it's so important, especially within our community, to correct these issues that we have with marriage. And I know one person can't be the beginning and the end of all the examples that we have, but it takes a lot of courage for you to come on and talk about these things. So I just want to tell you, I thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you for the invite.
Okay, as for our listeners, thank y'all so much. Again, we really appreciate the support that you guys give us. And we're just so blessed to be in these positions to be able to share these things with you guys. I am Swaver, joined by Journey to Be Great, Coco Love, Illuminated Lenses. This is the Opinionated Facts Media Group podcast. And until next time, peace.